I financed their entire life. $33,400, and they secretly married without me. My name is Renate Richter, and I live in a small, quiet town in Ohio. And right now, I am 72 years old. But this story begins exactly 3 years ago when I was 69 years old, and my husband Robert had died 10 years earlier from cancer. And we only had one child, a son named Max, who is now 35 years old. And 3 years ago, he married a woman named Lena. And this is the full true story of how I gave them $33,400 in only 3 short years, and how they thanked me by having a secret wedding and never inviting me at all, not even one little bit. 3 years ago, Max and Lena were completely broke, and Max had a low-paying job at a hardware store, and Lena did not work at all, and they rented a tiny apartment that cost $500 every single month for rent. And one day, Max called me on the phone and he was crying very hard. And he said, "Mom, the landlord is going to kick us out tomorrow morning if we do not pay the rent, and we have $0 in the bank, and we are scared. And can you please help us? Just this one time only." And I love my son more than anything in the whole wide world. So I said, "Yes, of course I will help you." And I drove to the bank that same afternoon, and I sent them $500 right away. And I really truly thought it was going to be only one time and nothing more. But one time quickly turned into every single month, and for 3 full years, that is 36 months straight, I sent them $500 on the first day of every month, so they would never be late on rent. And that is $18,000 only for rent. And I never missed even 1 month, and I never asked them to pay me back even once, because I just wanted them to have a safe, warm place to live every day. Their apartment was totally empty when they moved in, and there was no couch, and no bed, and no table, and no chairs, and no television, and nothing at all. And I bought everything for them from my own money, and I bought a big soft gray couch for $800, and I bought a kitchen table and 4 matching chairs for $400, and I bought a queen-size bed and a good mattress for $1,000, and I bought lamps and curtains and rugs and dishes and silverware and pots and pans and towels and sheets and pillows and blankets and a big flat-screen television, and all of that furniture and household stuff cost $3,200 total, and I paid with my own credit card because they had no money at all, not even a little bit. Every single week, their refrigerator was empty, and they would call or text me and say, "Mom, we have no food until payday, and we are hungry." And I would drive to the big supermarket and buy milk and eggs and bread and chicken and ground beef and rice and pasta and cereal and fresh fruit and vegetables and juice and cheese and yogurt and snacks. And I spent about $200 every month on food just for them. And $200 times 36 months is $7,200 only on groceries. And I never complained even once. When their old car broke down, I paid the mechanic every single time. And it broke down 4 different times. And each repair cost between $400 and $800. And when Lena said she needed to go to the doctor or buy medicine, I sent money for that too. And when Max had a birthday, I sent $300 so they could go out to a nice restaurant. And at Christmas, I sent $500 for presents. And on their dating anniversary, I sent another $300, and all the birthday gifts and Christmas gifts and little surprises added up to $3,000 more, and I was always happy to do it. Sometimes Lena would text me and say I need new shoes for a job interview, or the electric bill is $200 and we are short, or the air conditioner broke and it is 95 degrees in here. And every single time I sent the money right away, and I never said no, and I never asked questions, and I never got mad, and I just wanted them to be happy and comfortable and safe every day. All of this money came straight from my own savings, and when my husband Robert died, he left me a nice amount so I could live comfortably when I got older. And I worked as a school secretary for 35 long years, and I saved every extra penny I could. And I also get a small pension check and Social Security every month, and that money was supposed to be for trips, and for fun things, and for my future. And instead, I gave almost all of it to Max and Lena, without thinking twice. One quiet evening, I sat down at my kitchen table with a notebook and a calculator, and I wrote down every single dollar I could remember giving them, and page after page of numbers and rent, $18,000, and furniture, $3,200, and groceries, $7,200 in gifts and holidays, $3,000 in car repairs, $2,000 in doctor visits and clothes and all the little extras, $2,000. And when I added the final number, the total was $33,400, exactly in just 3 years. And that is more money than many people make in a whole year of hard work. And I gave every single penny to my son and his wife, and I never asked for anything back. I was happy to help them, and I really truly was. And I thought that is what good mothers do. And I thought Max loved me the same way I loved him. And I thought Lena was like a daughter to me. And I thought we were a real family that would always be there for each other no matter what. Then one day, Max told me they were finally getting married, and I was so excited, I almost cried happy tears. And I had been waiting for this day for years and years. And I went shopping and found the perfect pale pink dress to wear to the wedding, and it cost $200. And I bought beautiful new shoes for $80. And I put $1,000 in a pretty envelope to give them as a wedding gift. And I cleaned my whole house from top to bottom, because I thought they would come visit after the wedding. And I called my sister Diana, who lives in Chicago, and told her the wonderful news. And I smiled every single day, thinking about being at my only son's wedding and seeing him happy. One sunny afternoon, I called Max and asked, "When is the exact date of the wedding? Because I want to be ready with my dress and everything." And that is when Lena looked me right in the eyes with a cold little smile and said, "Oh, Renati, we already got married yesterday, and we only invited special people." And those words hit me like a truck going 100 miles an hour. And special people. And I had paid their rent 36 times without fail. And I had bought every single plate they ate from. And I had skipped my own meals many nights, so they could eat steak and shrimp. And I was not special enough to be invited to my only son's wedding, not even for 1 minute. I stood in my own living room holding the phone, and it felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds, and Max would not even look at me. And Lena sat down on the couch I bought them, and acted like everything was perfectly normal, and my beautiful pink dress was hanging in the closet for absolutely nothing, and the new shoes still had the price tags on them, and the $1,000 wedding gift was still in my purse, waiting for a day that would never come, ever. Max finally spoke, and his voice sounded fake like he had practiced it many times in front of a mirror. And he said, "Mom, it was a very small wedding, just the two of us and 2 witnesses. Nothing big." And I knew right away he was lying. And that same night, I opened Facebook on my computer, and I saw all the pictures, and there were at least 25 people, and Lena's mom and dad were hugging them and smiling huge, and Lena's brother and sister were holding champagne glasses and laughing, and Lena wore a giant white wedding dress that cost a lot of money, and I helped pay for that dress when she asked me for $800 last month for wedding things, and everyone looked so happy, and everyone except me, and I was not in a single picture, not even one tiny picture. I sat at my kitchen table and cried the quietest tears I ever cried in my whole life, and my heart felt completely broken into a million tiny pieces, and I could not stop crying for hours. Exactly 7 days later, my phone rang, and it was Lena, and her voice was not happy or proud anymore, and it was small and scared and shaky, and she said, "Renati, the rent is 2 days late, and the landlord is calling every day and threatening to kick us out, and you forgot to send the money this month, and can you please send it right now?" And I was quiet for a very long time, and I thought about the wedding pictures, and I thought about the words "only special people." And then I said in the calmest voice I ever used, "Lena, didn't I always tell you, I only help special people?" And the phone went completely silent, and I could hear her breathing fast, and she said, "Renati, I do not understand. And you always said we were special to you, and you are like a second mom to me." And I did not answer, and I just hung up the phone quietly. That night, I sat on my bed and cried again. But these tears were different from the first ones, and these were angry tears. And I was angry at Max and Lena for using me like an ATM machine, and I was angry at myself for being so blind and stupid for 3 whole years. And I took out my notebook again and looked at the giant number $33,400, and that was money I saved my entire life, and that was money my husband Robert worked so hard for before he got sick and died, and they took every single penny and then told me I was not special, and that hurt more than anything. The next morning I woke up a completely different woman, and I made my coffee like I always do, But I did not check my phone for messages from Max, and I did not worry if they had food or rent money. And for the first time in 3 years, I only worried about Renati and what I wanted and what I needed. I got dressed and drove straight to the bank, and the manager is named Mr. Klein, and he knows me very well because he watched me send $500 to Max every month for 3 years. And I walked into his office and said, "Mr. Klein, please cancel every single automatic payment to my son right now today." And he looked shocked, and he said, "Are you sure, Mrs. Richter? You have done this every month without fail for 3 years?" And I looked him straight in the eye and said, "I have never been more sure of anything in my entire life, and I mean it." While I was signing the papers, my phone started ringing over and over and over, and Max and Lena and Max again, and Lena again, and I turned the phone completely off. And when I walked out of the bank, I felt 20 pounds lighter, and my money finally belonged to me again, and only me, and no one else. That afternoon, I went for a long, peaceful walk in the park near my house, and I had not walked just for fun in years and years. And every time I left the house, it was to go to the bank for them, or the grocery store for them. And this time, I walked only for myself, and I sat on a bench and watched little children play on the swings. And I remembered when Max was 5 years old, and we came to this same park every weekend, and he would hold my hand tight and say, "Mommy, you are the best mommy in the whole wide world." And I wondered when he stopped believing that. And I wondered when I started believing that love means giving away everything you own, no matter what. 2 days later, I came home from the grocery store and saw 3 cars parked in my driveway. And one was Max's blue car, and one was Lena's red car, and the third car I did not recognize at all. And I looked through my front window and saw people moving around inside my house, and they were inside my house without me there. And they still had spare keys, because I gave them keys 2 years ago, when they said they might need to check on me sometime. And I trusted them completely, and that was the biggest mistake of my entire life, and I know that now. I took a deep breath and opened the door, and Max was sitting on my couch with his head in his hands, looking sad. And Lena was walking back and forth like a caged animal. And an older man in a gray suit was sitting at my kitchen table, looking through my private bank papers and bills. And I said in a loud, clear voice, "What is happening in my house right now?" And they all turned and looked at me like I was the stranger. And Lena spoke first, and she said, "Renati, thank God you are finally home, and we need to talk right now. And this is Mr. Fisher, and he is a lawyer, and we are very worried about you." And the man stood up and gave me a fake polite smile, and he said, "Mrs. Richter, your son and daughter-in-law asked me to help, and your behavior has been very strange lately, and you suddenly stopped sending money, and you will not answer phone calls, and we think you need help making decisions, and we brought some papers for you to sign that will let Max and Lena take care of your money for you." And I looked at my private papers in his hands and felt fire in my chest, and I said, "Those papers are private, and put them down right now." And Max finally looked up, and he said, "Mom, we went to the bank yesterday, and Mr. Klein told us you canceled everything, and we do not understand why you are acting like this, and we think something is wrong with your mind." And Lena walked over and tried to hold my hand, and her eyes had big fake tears, and she said, "Renate, we love you so much, and we are scared for you. And at your age, people sometimes get confused and make bad choices, and we just want to help you." And then I understood everything perfectly, and they were not worried about me at all, and they were worried about losing their free money forever, and they wanted a judge to say I was crazy, so they could become my legal guardians and control my bank account and my house and my car and everything I own, and that made me so angry. I pointed to the front door and said, "Everyone get out of my house this minute." And Mr. Fisher tried to talk slow and calm like I was a little child, and he said, "Mrs. Richter, your children have legal rights, and we have papers that will make everything easier, and it is called power of attorney, and you just sign here, and Max and Lena will take care of all your bills and decisions for you." And I walked to the table and took the papers from his hand and threw them straight into the trash can without even looking at them. And I said, "The only thing happening today is the 3 of you walking out my front door right now." And Lena started crying loud, angry tears. And she said, "You cannot do this to us, Renate. And we have rent due tomorrow. And we have car payments. and we bought things because we knew you would always help, and we counted on you our whole lives. And I looked at her and said, you counted on my money, not on me, and you needed my bank account, not my love. And now you have neither, and get out of my house right now." And Max stood up and looked like an angry little boy who did not get his way, and he said, "Mom, you will be sorry one day, and when you are old and sick and completely alone, you will need us, and we will not be there." And I looked at my only son and said, "Max, I am already alone, and the only difference is, now it is my choice, not yours." And they walked out, and I closed the door and locked it. And then I stood in my quiet living room and listened to the most beautiful silence I had ever heard in my whole life, and it felt so good. That same night, I found a new lawyer, and his name is Mr. Weber, and he helps older people when their families try to take advantage of them. And I told him the entire story from the very first rent payment to the secret wedding to the lawyer sitting at my kitchen table with my private papers. And he listened carefully and wrote everything down. And when I finished, he said, "Mrs. Richter, what they are doing is called elder financial abuse, and it is against the law. And trying to say, you are crazy, just to get your money, is also against the law. And we are going to protect you and everything you own." And I felt safe for the first time in years. The very next day, I did 3 very important things. And first, I called a locksmith and had every single lock in my house changed, so the old keys would not work anymore. And second, I paid a company to install security cameras all around my house, so I could see on my phone who comes to my door even when I am not home. And third, I opened a brand new bank account at a different bank that Max and Lena know nothing about. And I moved every penny into the new account, and I felt strong and free. Lena tried to trick me again a few days later, and she called from a different phone number I did not know, and she said, "Renate, it is me, and please do not hang up, and we are so sorry about how the wedding happened, and we want to make it up to you. And how about we have a special celebration dinner at your house next weekend, and we can cook together like a real family." And her voice was sweet, like sugar. And I said, "Lena, how much rent do you owe right now?" And she got very quiet, and then she said in a tiny voice, 2 months and $1,000. And I said, "You do not miss me, and you miss my money, and do not ever call me again." And I blocked that number too, and I felt powerful. Days started to feel lighter and happier than they had in years, and I made a new friend named Eleanor, who lives right next door, and she is 75 years old, and she told me her daughter did almost the exact same thing to her years ago. And Eleanor said, "I gave my daughter money every month for 8 years, and then one day I stopped, and at first she was furious, but later she learned to take care of herself, and now we have a real relationship, because it is based on love, not money." And Eleanor introduced me to her friends Maria and Carmen and Cynthia and Alfreda, and we started having coffee together every Tuesday morning, and we laugh and tell stories and enjoy life, and nobody ever asks me for money, and it feels wonderful and warm and good. One afternoon, I came home from the store and saw Max's car and Lena's car and 2 other cars parked in front of my house again, and I looked at my phone, and the cameras showed 4 people standing at my front door ringing the bell over and over. And I did not go inside, and I sat in my car and called Mr. Weber, and he said, "Stay in your car and lock the doors, and I am calling the police right now." And 10 minutes later, 2 police cars came with lights flashing, and the officers told Max and Lena and their friends to leave my property immediately and never come back without permission. And Max yelled across the street, "Mom, you called the police on your own son, and this is insane." And I rolled down my window and said, "Insane is trying to steal your mother's life savings." And the police made them leave, and I felt safe again. They kept trying new tricks, and one morning, a nice-looking lady came to my door and said hello. "Mrs. Richter, I am a social worker from Senior Services, and someone called and said you might need help, and can I come in and talk for a few minutes?" And I let her in, because I knew I had nothing to hide. And she asked many questions about my money and my memory and my daily life. And Mr. Weber came over quickly and showed her all my bank records and doctor reports that prove I am perfectly healthy and smart. And she looked at everything carefully and finally said, "Mrs. Richter, you are doing wonderful, and there is no problem here at all, and I am closing this case today." And she left, and never came back, and I smiled because I won again. Then they did the worst thing of all, and they took me to court, and they filed papers saying I was mentally incompetent and needed a guardian, and they wanted the judge to give them full control of my money and my house and my car and my entire life. And they told the judge I became strange and paranoid when I stopped giving them money, and they brought fake stories and fake papers to make me look crazy, and I was scared, but I was ready to fight. The trial day was one of the scariest days of my life, and I put on my best black suit and went to the courthouse with Mr. Weber, and Max, and Lena were there with their own expensive lawyer, and Lena cried huge tears on the witness stand, and she said, "Renati has always been like a second mom to me, and now she is confused and angry, and we are so worried about her health." And Max said the same things, and they brought 3 people to say I was acting strange, and one was a grumpy neighbor, and one was the pharmacist, Lena tricked, and one was Lena herself, and I just sat there and listened and stayed calm. Then it was my turn to fight back, and my new friends testified that I am strong and smart and happier than ever, and the pharmacist told the truth about how Lena tricked him into signing a false paper, and Mr. Klein from the bank explained that all my decisions about money were perfectly clear and smart, and my doctor showed test results that my brain is excellent for my age, and I felt proud and strong. I took the stand last, and I looked straight at the judge and told my whole story from beginning to end, and I told about every dollar of the $33,400, and I told about the secret wedding and the words "only special people," and I told about them breaking into my house with a lawyer, and I said, "Your Honor, I am not crazy, and I am finally awake, and I finally see that they loved my bank account, not me. And I stopped giving money because I want to keep my dignity and my freedom," and my voice was strong and clear. The judge listened to everyone for hours, and then he spoke, and he said, "Mrs. Renati Richter is completely able to make her own choices, and there is no medical proof she is sick or confused, and this case is only about money, not love or health, and the request for guardianship is denied completely, and I won, and I walked out of that courthouse a free woman, and I cried happy tears for the first time in years." 3 months later, I sold my old house, and I bought a beautiful apartment in the city with big windows and a sunny balcony, and I gave half of my remaining money to organizations that help older people who are treated badly by their families, and with the other half, I travel to places I always dreamed of seeing, and I take painting classes every week, and I eat at nice restaurants with my wonderful new friends, and I am happy every single day, and I wake up smiling. I never heard from Max or Lena again, and a friend told me they had to move to a tiny apartment, and Lena finally got a job at a coffee shop. And maybe they are learning how to take care of themselves, and maybe not. And that is not my problem anymore, and I do not care because I am free. Some nights I sit on my balcony and look at the stars, and I think about the old Renate, who believed she had to buy love with money, and that woman is gone forever, and a new Renate is here now, and she knows real love is free, and she knows peace and freedom are worth way more than $33,400 ever could be, and I am proud of the new me. My name is Renati Richter, and I am 72 years old, and I finally learned that the best person to take care of is myself, and that is the end of my story. But it took me 3 years and $33,400 to learn it, and now I am free and happy every day, and I will never let anyone use me again, and that is the truth, and I am strong, and I am proud, and I am finally living my own life the way I want to live it every single day from now on.